Good morning. I am back on Facebook Live. Okay. The pivot was a little easier this time. Hey, I like when that happens. Still figuring out the technology side of things because unfortunately the computer that I am used to doing my recording on is officially out of date. MacBooks, they really do have a limit. I guess 7 years is the limit for how long one could be functional for, but that's okay. Trying to get some other things fixed and, they say it's a 999 day, numerology kind of thing and endings and it makes you reflect when you run into little things like, all right, so what's coming to a close? What am I moving into? And I'm feeling the itch, call, what do you want to say, or that annual splurge of doing podcasts. I used to be hard on myself a little bit more, with infrequency of things. But then when I take a further step back and look at the year and the patterns over the years, there's actually a pattern to it. And apparently, winter time is my podcast time. Starting between November and February and get in a good few episodes before either situation changes or technology ends up defuncting me, which is what happened earlier this year. Unfortunately, the software I'm still paying for, I it stopped working on my MacBook, right? So, and I have more complex ideas I want to be able to do, and when you don't have the technology to be able to access the tools to be able to properly and eloquently communicate that is very, very frustrating. I know when I got a laptop as an accessibility tool when I went to university, I was blown away by how much of an accessibility tool it actually is. I was able to type notes like a freaking chapter book. It was crazy, the note taking, because I was able to type and retain more information and end up being, it was a high specialty for me and something I developed very, very well to adapt for my disability, especially my hearing. Irony, note taking being how you adapt to being hard of hearing, but it worked for me. It allowed me to capture information in a more detailed and succinct fashion. I end up with my own shorthand, and this is back when it was like, it wasn't a laptop I got, it was a tungsten E3 or E2 or whatever the heck it was, and had a flip keyboard, had the infrared, and you don't make things like that anymore. Now it's these big clunky iPads, which is fine. It's fine that it's big clunky iPads, but I do miss my little tungsten E3. I made a little case for it so that way I could take it with me to the classes, sit down in the classes, open it up, start typing my notes. But I always made sure this was back before every student had a computer in the class. So I'd actually have to go up to the professor before the class and be like, hey, by the way, I'm hard of hearing in my left ear and I'm blind in my right eye. And so I'm going to be sitting on this side of the classroom and I am going to be taking my notes with this and, I'll be recording you just so you know. So that way they knew what I was up to. They didn't think I was just like on the computer doing other things. And that was the beauty of it because it was an independent device for a specific purpose. So it could not be misinterpreted as being used for entertainment purposes, as often happens with laptops and iPads these days. So it was a bit of a different world back then too, right? But yeah, note taking became a thing. But the thing is note taking and being able to do all these cool things like being able to type these out, being able to edit them and whatever, required having the right hardware and the right software. And the only way I was able to pull that off is by, you know, wonderful people that saw that it could be an accessibility device for me, in university, which I had no clue of before then. And it's kind of nice that we're now growing up in a generation. My son's growing up in a generation where you need an assistive device to be able to be on par with your peers that's technology based. We will help you with that. That's a whole different level of cool. Like, I come from a generation where you often didn't find out that you needed or what supports were even possible until maybe university, unless you got lucky in the system sometimes, but that sometimes happened. Life's weird, man. Life's weird. So I'm back onto this and I'm going to try doing more conversations. Now, my thing is like doing little blips and reels and stuff like that. It's kind of like small talk to me. Small talk is kind of like I can do it for brief periods of time, but I want to talk to you about in-depth things. I want to show you, I want to demonstrate. I am an educator, right? Which is kind of cool. The other thing I want to try is I want to do a little bit more in French because recently figured out I haven't really spoken much French in 5 years since I left the university. And like I used to use French to express and do different things. And um I'm going to try to do a few more to kind of bridge that gap a little bit. It'd also be a nice little outlet, healthy outlet for me, I do believe. So that's the other thing I'm going to do. And what I would like from whoever views this later on, I'm probably embedding this into other little clips as it's a thing to do. I'll figure out how that works on Facebook. I got used to the Instagram side, right? So now I'm figuring out this side. But if there's a topic that you would like to hear, I'm all for it. See, that's not small talk to me. That's like, ooh, you'd like to know something and like to hear my opinion on it? Let me do some research on it and I'll get back to you on it. As Young Librarian, I have been doing quite a bit over the number of years, and I've still continued with the advocacy. But if there's a subject that you'd be awful curious to hear me elaborate upon, I would like to know. I send out this call. I did it annually for a while. I don't know if I did it last year or not. And I get some feedback. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. We'll see how this year goes. Maybe I will. A lot has changed in the last few years, right? And I can't assume how things were a few years ago is going to be the same now. Not at all. We're in a whole new environment once again, right? So, if there are things that I could explain to help assist you understand something in, I am into the advocacy, librarianship, information literacy, information resilience, and yes, I do go into mental health and trauma coaching and all that stuff. My backgrounds and knowledge bases are expanding in the health field a little more. I'm keeping that more for myself a little bit, I'll be honest, but I do elaborate when it comes to friends and whatnot. I I have this like nagging little project in the back of my mind of, I know, talking a bit more as a parent with disabilities, being a part of the school system. I actually just closed a chapter as I was the vice chair for the Parent School Support Committee, the PSSC committee for my son's elementary school last year, and I'm in debate if I do that this year. So, September for me, as usual, it's a bit of a point of reflection. I know it's because my birthday month too. Not sure, but it is a point of reflection where, I'm deciding where to put my energy. Because if I don't give it a direction, um, it's very easy to be taken just with the winds, right? Which has been wonderful and great. But, if I can actually come to, okay, I would like to dedicate some time and energy to this type of committee. I'd like to do it with this committee, but also spread it out. Because I still don't have a heck of a lot of energy. It takes me like a week to be able to be like, okay, I can go on and do a video. It's getting easier. It is. It is. I fully admit that. There's a lot of intention in there as well to be able to get to this point, right? And, the Unlibrarian has been a very important piece for me for, it's been 5 years with that. And as much as I try to let go of the librarian stuff, I just hung up my diplomas finally in my hallway and I can actually see them from my bed. Like, I need to honor that too. I can't just, it's like throwing out the baby with bathwater. It's foolish, right? It's a vocation for me. The Unlibrarian has been still of advocacy, and that's perhaps why I'm coming out to my audience and saying, hey, what would you like me to talk about? I struggle still with making those decisions for picking topics, but that's my cognitive iffiness that's happened over the last few years. And like I said, it is easier, but I still need help. I said the words, yes, I still need help. Pretty cool. It's really, Like, I can now say that without feeling like, oh, I don't have shame in that now because I can better explain now how and in what ways I will accept the help. That's one of the parts of like when you see somebody needing help or whatnot and you offer, the person must be open enough to receive, even if it's just by a little bit, right? That requires, building a certain degree of trust and safety with another person. And I don't know, maybe that's why as a librarian, like it's part of my aura, part of my gift is, I'm sitting at a desk and people need to feel safe enough to be able to come up to me to ask them a question about something they're trying to solve that they may feel expected to do on their own. They might feel shame about, looking up the subject to be able to even require help on it in the first place. When you're at the reference desk, you actually end up dealing with a lot of variety of emotion that people are coming to the desk with. Sometimes it's stress and anxiety. I have this project I gotta submit tomorrow. Hello. Yep. Okay. We're gonna help you out with that. You have to have that openness to you to be approachable. And that's always just been a part of me. When I went into librarianship, it was more about, I enjoyed doing research, but I didn't want to become like going down the road of a researcher, even though I ended up doing that anyway. I enjoyed reading. I read so much when I was a kid. So much when I was a kid, right? Crazy how much I used to read. And I'm getting back into that now. But I've had to heal a lot of this. I've had to do incredible amounts of work to be able to, like, I'm still on a wait list to get a cognitive assessment. I'm going to be healed by the time I get in. But, I mean, I'm finally getting assistance as well to handle a lot of the things I've gone through. And that's taken many years to finally get in. And I did it though. I did it. Like, that's the crazy thing. Like, I look back and I'm like, now I better understand, like, when I was going through certain things, what I could have requested to better support myself, because I shouldn't have expected the support to come from where it ought to have been, requests for counseling and stuff like that. But of the proper level, like, instead it takes a lot of time and effort. My running joke for people that know is cancer ought not to be the answer. Oh, there's a lot of dark humor in there. But I mean, that comes out as the Unlibrarian, right? Like, it is a lot of dark humor behind the Unlibrarian. I've been kind of curious myself, how did I come up with that business name? It's a lot of dark humor. Makes sense now, doesn't it? To me, it does anyway. It's kind of neat. So, yeah, a friend of mine and we've been talking a lot about how we need to, do more in social media. She's feeling the same way. I'm feeling the same way. And we tried to use a couple different programs to see if we can do mutual. So if you have program suggestions, software suggestions of like, virtual platforms like this or like programs to be able to like do group chat like that, like you see the videos and I always wonder how people do them. I did try using a software, Riverside, and it was okay, but it wasn't dynamic enough. And like Zoom is great, but like I used to have a subscription, but that could be also. So anyway, I'd be very curious to hear about different software that you use to be able to use for discourse. Because I mean, just the other day, somebody was asking a question about how do I prepare my kid for buses and being around people, like the kid has neurodivergence. And I was just like, information resilience, reading familiarity through discourse. When you talk about something or go through a scenario with other people, perhaps who have been there or understand just by understanding, so many people just understand and we don't have to ask why or anything more than that. Just, I understand, right? But when it came to when I was that age, I got to thinking like, what did I need? So I get to be the person in those shoes, right? Talk about it. Talk about the scenarios of the questions of the what ifs, and you end up breeding familiarity through discourse. And that's, you also end up generating critical thinking, you end up generating independent thought, and a whole bunch of other things. And it's also a way of advocating and sharing ideas even further. And that's why, like, with what's been going on at Dalhousie with the faculty being locked out, like, come on, guys. Yeah, ask questions. In university, I would always get the feeling of, oh, somebody's got a question in this room. And nobody would raise their hand, but I could tell there was a bunch of them that had the same type of question. I had the same kind of question too, but I figured it out already. But I knew there were people in the classroom that had this burning question. Raise my hand. I'd ask the question and I would feel a bunch of sighs around me of, that's the answer. Later on, when I became a educator in the librarian world, teaching in university and teaching in, adults, I love being able to get that sense, to feel those vibes of like, that person's got a question. What is that? That person seems a little lost. I wonder why. And being able to transmute that into something fun and cool through a profession was wonderful. And I mean, I'm talking a lot about why I became a librarian and, healing from being a librarian and all that stuff. And like, it's great to unpack. And maybe this is where I need to pause and be for a little while before it becomes somewhat obvious to me what my next path shall be, because the universe has said, nope, you need to heal from all of this stuff. And here is your ticket to give a pause. And here you go. So make good use of it. And by grace and golly, I am trying to maximize that with great gratitude. Life is fun. It's good to be thriving because that's the goal. Part of the process. It's not something that just happens like that. It can take years to get there. Well worth every single bit of effort. That's been my compass steering my ship. I'm a captain on my ship. And with that goal, I have gotten fairly far. I've been called to do other things and I go try to do them and the funding's not there, this isn't there, this blockage is there, this is not happening. It's like, okay, I gotta sit back again. And then, it did get bad enough that I finally got bad enough that the system worked in my favor finally. So, and I do have to be conscious of that too. I don't want to rush into anything at all. I have my time while my kid's at school, so that is my time to be doing things like this, which is great. I'd like to make it into a little, see how that builds in there. As you can tell, I'm still unpacking and getting set up in my new space too, so there is that. It's a process. It takes time, and it's wonderful. Oh, and I think one of my things just got fixed, so I'm gonna go take care of that. Have a good one, guys.